The next investigation of mobility that we'll be looking at is gross shoulder flexion. Okay, I don't mean gross like yucky, I mean gross like total. So when we're looking at the shoulder, it's important to recognize that there are two major facets to shoulder motion. Okay, there's the movement of the scapula, there's the movement of the actual shoulder blade on the rib cage in what we call a floating axis, where it just kind of floats around, floats up, floats down. And there's the actual arm on socket motion. Those two things combine together to create the gross motion of the shoulder. There's always going to be a component of scapular movement and a component of arm on socket motion that makes for any motion through the upper extremity. So when I say gross abduction, gross extension, gross flexion, in this case, I mean the combined movements of the arm on socket and of the scapula on the body. Okay, so this is gross shoulder flexion, which in client speak means arm going up overhead. Okay, so a couple of things to note right away. Most people will do this where the legs are crossed, which can have some degree of influence on the investigation. So first thing I would say is please uncross your legs, right? Let's go with arms down by our sides, all right? Now we don't want the elbows locked, okay? We also don't want them bent. Now some people will structurally sit with a little bit of elbow flexion. So what I want you to do is ask them to be engaged, okay? I use the term engaged. So let's just have you not fully relaxed, but not super taut. Let's have you engaged through your arms, through your upper extremity, and let's go with thumbs up, okay? Now, I have this bias. It just keeps me going in a good flow. I'll check the left side first on pretty much everything I do, okay? And anytime I'm going one side or the other in a unilateral exercise, downstairs or online, whatever it might be, I start with the left side. It just keeps things orderly. We want to keep the same orientation of the shoulder the whole time. Okay, so that thumb for all intents and purposes is going to stay up, then it's going to be pointing backwards, and then it's going to be pointing downwards, assuming the person can get to that point of shoulder flexion, that degree of shoulder flexion. So I'm going to stand and again look perpendicular to the axis, which would be this way. I'm looking from the side. I'm going to say, okay, Colleen, let's have you with both arms nice and straight. And let's have you take your left arm just smoothly overhead as much as you can. Make sure the thumb stays in the same orientation and come on up, 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 right about there. Awesome. So that's pretty full. That's pretty full. And come on back. And when we've done this in my office before, because of space limitations, it's not always been possible to get to the other side. When you're doing this in any of the rooms that we have available here, you're going to have enough space, or you should make it so that there's enough space so you can go to the other side so you can have a nice even perspective, okay? So thumb up again, and let's have you take that right arm straight up over your head. And come on back, okay? Now, I'm going to ask Colleen to do that again, not because I saw anything, but because I didn't see anything. All right, so I just want to make sure from a slightly altered perspective that there wasn't anything that I missed. Because I'm crouching, I'm looking directly through the axis. I might have missed some little deviations of the arm kind of waving this way. So I'm going to stand a little taller. I can still see perpendicular to the axis. So this may be a more advantageous point of view in some sense. By crouching down, the message that you're sending is I'm being precise. Okay? So unless there's pain, so any pain on that? Okay, that's what I thought. So unless there's pain, I'll usually ask the person to do it again. So I'm standing a little taller, arms nice and straight, thumbs up, and let's take that left arm straight up overhead. Good, come on back. And right side now. And come on back. Okay, so I would call that pretty even. If I were to get really kind of nitpicky, I might say it looked like there was a bit of a quality difference on the right side, but nothing to write home about, did you feel any difference from side to side? Okay. So that's as even as any of these ranges are probably going to get, which is good, which is good. Now, if we're looking at common places where this particular range of motion can come into play in exercise, well, anything that is involved with overhead. So if someone is looking to do anything related to an overhead press, okay, and they've got one side that goes up pretty easy and the other side gets stuck even here. So this I'd call, if we were to go from the side so you can see the difference, this is about a 1 in terms of a difference. The issue is with the structure, without going into details of it, with the structures of the shoulders and the interplay of the shoulders and the neck and the requirements of the spine, especially if you're going with both arms going overhead at the same time, this 1 level difference, or this level 1 difference by our standard that we're going for in this investigation, can make a huge difference in terms of the probability of injury and pain on this kind of exercise. So if you're trying to go directly overhead and this one shoulder can't go, there's going to be twisting, there's going to be turning through the spine, there's going to be extra side bend to one side. It can be actually quite disastrous. Okay, now there's things we can do to account for that when we're doing our exercise selection, but that's for another day. Similarly, pull downs. And even more drastically, pull-ups. So the thing with a pull-up or a pull-down that makes those kinds of exercises more even riskier when it comes to this particular range of motion is that the load is pulling you into this overhead position. So particularly if you're working with a high percentage of if a client is working with a high percentage of their maximum available load, and it's passively or it's influencing their ability to go into this overhead position, they might be getting forced into a position that they can't control. Okay, and there's very little you can do to compensate for that. Again, particularly if it's in a pull-up scenario, I would say that's even riskier than a pull-down scenario.